Today, we will be talking about the investiture controversy. What is the investiture controversy? The investiture controversy was the most significant conflict between church and state in medieval Europe, specifically involving the Holy Roman Empire and the Pope. In the 11th and 12th centuries, a series of popes challenged the authority of European monarchies. The issue was who. The Pope or monarchs had the authority to appoint or invest in local church officials, such as bishops and abbots. The controversy began as a power struggle between Pope Gregory VII and Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV. By undercutting the imperial power established by previous emperors, the controversy led to nearly 50 years of civil war in Germany. Background on the investiture controversy. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, significant changes took place within the churches of the Germanic successor states, who stopped looking to the Roman Pope for guidance. When the Holy Roman Empire developed as a force during the 10th century, it was the first real non-barbarian challenge to the authority of the church. Investiture, or appointing of church officials, was theoretically a task for the church and its leaders, but it was often performed by nobility. Many bishops and abbots themselves were a part of the ruling nobility and assumed Christian duties, including the protection and foundation of churches and abbeys. A substantial amount of wealth, power, and land was associated with the church offices. The sale brought a lot of income to noble leaders as they owned the land and by charity allowed the churches to be built on the land. And it was also essential for the ruler or the king to appoint someone to the church that would be loyal to them because of the amount of wealth, power that was associated with the church. What started the investiture controversy? The crisis began when a group within the church, known as the members of the Gregorian Reform in the 11th century, decided to rebel against the rule of simony by forcefully taking the power of investiture from the ruling Holy Roman Emperor and placing the power back within control of the church. The Gregorian reformers' first step was to forcibly gain the office of the Pope, also known as the papacy, from the control of the Holy Roman Emperor. The opportunity came in 1056 when 10-year-old Henry IV became the German king, and the reformers took advantage of his youth and inability to react quickly by seizing the papacy with force. In 1059, a church council in Rome declared in nomine domini, the leaders of the nobility would have no part in the selection of popes. In addition, the College of Cardinals was also created as a body of electors made up entirely of church officials. Some important events in the investiture controversy. Until the Gregorian reform of the 11th century, the arrangement of the monarchs picking rulers for the church worked to the benefit of all concerned and was widely accepted. In a large part, this acceptance was due to the revival of ancient canon law and the emphasis of its universal and contemporary applicability by the resurgent papacy. Cardinal Humbert of Silva Canida sharply criticized the contemporary method of church elections in 1058, citing that it was completely reversed in the order that was envisioned by the Church Fathers, which involved notification of the emperor at the end of the process. And this photograph is of Cardinal Humbert. Pope Gregory VII, however, accepted investiture at the beginning of his time as Pope. But as he increased his estrangement from King Henry IV, as the king refused to obey commands from the Pope's office, it eventually disrupted the harmony between them. In January 1076, at the Assembly in Worms, Henry IV renounced his obedience to the Pope and called on him to abdicate. As a result, Pope Gregory deposed and excommunicated Henry IV in 1076. Despite some reconciliation in 1077 in Canossa, Italy, tensions continued, and Henry was again deposed and excommunicated in 1080. More important events. Another important event was Dictus Papae. So in 1076, Pope Gregory VII composed the Dictus Papae. One clause asserted that the removal of an emperor was under the sole power of the Pope. It declared that the Roman Church was founded by God alone and that the church power was the sole universal power. That was very important. By this time, Henry IV was no longer a child, but he was still continuing to appoint his own bishops against the wishes of the Pope. He reacted to this declaration of the Pope by sending his own letter, in which he withdrew his imperial support of Gregory as Pope in no uncertain terms. The situation was made worse when Henry IV chose his own Milanese priest, Tetelad, as Bishop of Milan, while the Pope had already chosen Atto for the candidacy. In 1076, the Pope again responded by excommunicating Henry and deposing him as the German king, which this is also very important. It released all Christians from their oath of allegiance to King Henry. Enforcing the declarations made by both parties was challenging, but it gradually came to benefit the Pope and the Church more than it did the Holy Roman Emperor. So, the investiture controversy was resolved by the Quartet of Worms in 1122, which gave the Church power over who is put into their offices. By undercutting the imperial power established by emperors, the controversy did have its negative parts as it led to nearly 50 years of civil war in Germany. It continued for several decades after this, resolving with the Covenant of Worms in 1122. But yeah, the papacy also grew stronger in its power and authority over the monarchy. There's some significance for this event. It ended nearly 50 years of fighting, and it ended when Emperor Henry V, which was Henry IV's son, and Pope Calixtus II agreed to the Covenant of Worms. It differentiated between the royal and spiritual powers and gave the emperors a limited role in selecting bishops. The outcome mainly favored the Pope and the Church, but the emperor was able to retain power. It eliminated lay investiture while leaving secular leaders some room for unofficial influence in the appointment process. It also brought an end to the first phase of the power struggle between the papacy and the Holy Roman emperors, and eventually it led to what is known as the Treaty of Westphalia, and that came in 1648. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope you learned something, and thank you for watching.